In the meantime, while I wait for that screen to come in, I can continue with assembly on the rest of the pump. I am going to put this together right now. Alright, so I got this all cleaned up, and I got the new square cut O-ring in position, and I think I'll try and put that sleeve in, that piston in now. So actually I already put it in, and then of course the spring goes next, and then my plug. So what I'm going to do for starters is I'm going to screw it down so it clears this hole right here. So obviously it's got to do that much. Got to put a wrench on here. Alright, so I'm looking at this now, and if I push that up so that that little piston that I can just see in that little tiny slot right there is halfway up the slot, the spring is compressed but not fully. It doesn't get fully compressed until I get way over here. So not sure whether or not the advice I was given was intended to mean that I'm supposed to keep tightening this in, because it looks like I'd have to tighten that in quite a bit more. I've got good spring tension here now. I think what I'll do is I'll tighten it maybe just a few more turns. Okay, so now, not sure if you can see this or not, but you can see the piston in the hole right there. And what I'm doing is I'm looking in that slot right there. When I push it in so it's fully compressing the spring, you can see the piston's about, well, it's just maybe a quarter of a way up that slot. That's if I'm measuring the entire length of the slot to be from here to the bottom of this hole right here. But if I was including the hole in my calculation there, then right now it's at about halfway when I push it all the way in. So that's what I'm going to go with for my initial setting. Hopefully that'll be okay. I'm just going to temporarily screw this into the end cap for safekeeping while I wait for that new spring to come in. I temporarily removed the drive shaft so that I can invert the pump on the bench so I can install my transfer pump liner and new transfer pump blades and springs. So here's the original transfer pump liner. You can see it's stamped on this side with 1 C, and it's stamped on this side with 2 C's. 1 C for clockwise, 2 C's for counterclockwise. So hopefully the new replacement liner is marked similarly. And it is. Got a C and a CC. Okay, I donned some gloves because I'm getting ready to put the liner in and the transfer pump blades in. Now we're going to talk about how this goes in. There's a couple of things you got to be concerned about. The first thing you got to be concerned about is whether or not it goes in this way with the C facing up, or this way with the CC facing up. This pump is a clockwise running pump as viewed from the front of the engine, from the drive shaft in the front. So the liner has to go in with the C facing up. So you can see the C, that means it's set for clockwise. Also, if I just put this in, I can rotate this 180 degrees, but what indexes where this pump actually is located is actually this slot right here. On the end cap, during disassembly, I noticed that there was this spring pin here, and I noticed there was one missing from this hole, and I kind of wondered about that. And now I know the reason why is because this pump is set up right now for clockwise. If I wanted to set this pump up for counterclockwise operation, I believe what I would do is I would invert this transfer pump liner so the CC faces up, and I would move this spring pin over to this hole, and what that would do the spring pin is actually what this keys into, and that's what locates the pump liner, just like that. So in other words, when I put this on, oops, gotta put this on with the, again, the C facing up. So I'm going to give this a bath in my fluid. Nice and wet, so that when this thing starts running for the first time, it will have some lubrication. And I drop this in like so. And now I've got the bottom of the pump facing down, so this tiny slot faces down, and this large slot will be on the right. So the larger chamber will be to the left, viewing it from the rear. And when I'm not going to do it, but when I put the end cap on, you'll see that this spring pin is going to engage that slot, and that's what indexes it. So that's how that goes in. And if there was any question, I also have my handy dandy videos I've made. So I did go back and double check those just to make sure that I didn't have it wrong. So the liner is now in, so now I can install my transfer pump blades, which they came in a little kit. So this is the little kit here, and what we've got in there are the 4 blades and the 2 springs that go between them. So let me just get this open. Doing my best to get these out without scratching them against each other. Also want to make sure they don't fall on the dirty shop floor. That'd be a no-no. Okay, so what I'm going to do is going to take one of these blades that already has a spring in it, and I'm going to insert it, the other end of the spring, into the other blade, and then I'm going to give it a dip in the fluid, and then I'm going to come right over and install it right into the slot. You'll notice I've got the bottom, the wider part of the blade, it's going to go down into the bottom. And the key here is they warn you to not try really hard not to cock the blades as you're inserting them, because this sharp edge of the liner can score the face of the new blades. Okay, there's one set, and you can see now why I put that in with the wide part facing down, because if the wide part was facing up, you're not going to get the second set in, because the second set basically goes in the opposite way and sits down on top of that. Now I'm going to insert my spring. So I've assembled it again. And now I think to make this a little easier on me, I'm going to rotate that rotor a little bit. There. Can't do that until when I go to turn the rotor, it wants to turn the whole liner. What I need to do is I'm going to hold the liner and rotate the rotor. There we go. So see, now I've got a very wide slot here that I'm going to be putting the blades into, so I won't have to be fighting the spring compression so much. Does that make sense to anybody else? I don't know if I said it right, but I think you know what I'm talking about. This is being compressed right here. So if I was trying to put it in with the slot going this way, I'd have to be fighting that spring tension a lot more. Alright, another dip. Okay, and it's in. And now just want to get that into registry a little bit better. Good. And now what I can do is I can wipe off the edge here, and I can actually put a little bit more fluid down in there. Alright, so now I'm going to insert the new O-ring. This is the O-ring that I removed. So that goes in the discard pile. That O-ring is easy to identify in the kit. It's actually a couple of big ones here that came with this kit. But if you notice, one's much thicker than the other, and the thicker one is a see, that one's too small, too skinny. The thicker one right here is a good match for what I just took out. So this O-ring gets installed here. Now my end plate goes on. Again, this end plate can go on either way. It is reversible, and the only thing I have to be sure of is that this little slot right here lines up with that slot there on the liner, because again, that's going to be what the end cap ends up. I forgot to put a little fluid on this. I took my gloves off already, but just cheat a little bit. So when I put the end plate on, that spring pin is going to engage that slot. Keep all that stuff together from moving around. So this goes on like this. Pretty straightforward. Now I can insert the 4 screws, but I actually just remembered I didn't clean these screws. They've still got all this garbage on them, so I'm going to take a little time to clean those before I put them in. I guess I'll just leave the screws soaking. I've got a appointment, so I've got to run. So that's going to be it for now.